showtime.
Dynamite Download.
Welcome to Dynamite Download, your source for positive coverage of all elite wrestling.
This is what pro wrestling's supposed to feel like.
Oh, you guys, positive energy.
I think that created a little moment in itself.
You're saying I have a better record than Kenny Omega and Samoa Joe, and now I'm going to have to wrestle them.
I've never seen someone able to break down like wrestling like he does.
No Mariah Mason, boom.
My real story does connect with a lot of people.
That you need to be careful in the locker room.
I definitely think that women's wrestling has been elevated.
I was like deep diving into like cults.
I never say never about anything.
Yeah.
Raw horse.
Raw horse?
Oh my god!
Amazing.
I had to smack him around a few times to fully gain his respect.
Frankie's match.
Awesome.
This podcast is quite frankly the drizzling shit, if I'm being quite honest.
Did they spread positivity about AEW?
Welcome to Dynamite Download.
Woohoo! Welcome.
What is up? Dynamite Download, episode 170. An outstanding episode last night. The road to Grand Slam. We aren't, but AEW is going down under in a few days. I can't wait for that show. So cheers, everyone. Welcome to Dynamite Download 170. Thank you for joining us. We got a lot to cover last night, and I'm excited, man. I mean, I loved how tight the show was last night. Yep. I loved the intro of the show, the way it was, the wrestlers in backstage getting all kind of pumped up, reminded me a little bit of Collision style.
Yeah.
And then just the ebb and flow of the show, and especially the ending. You know, you didn't end on a typical match. We got really some heated stuff towards the end of Dynamite, but
yes,
man, how did you feel about it before we get dive?
I felt like this was a go home show. Like Grand Slam is actually starting to feel like a pay-per-view. I almost felt like it was funny because I forgot. I was thinking we got to get the bingo cards out, and I realized, wait, no, this isn't a pay-per-view. But I was thinking about who's going to win what. But this is going to be a lot. And to quote Steven Chambers in the chat, I come from down under. Vegemite sandwich, women blow and men plunder. I think that's the lyrics anyways. Yeah, Full Tilt Deb, Brent the Brain is in the chat. Steven is in the chat. I know he doesn't want to miss this chat. Right. But what a show yesterday. I thought it was tremendous. And here's what's funny. The show was great. And I was popping. I was enjoying a lot of stuff. There was one match I was like, it was good, but, you know, I like the flippy do more than the technical wrestling. But I bet for all the Brian Danielson fans out there probably flipped their lid with that one trios match. But the show was stolen by one of the most epic promo music videos of all time. Harley Cameron and the Puppet stole the show from me. That was tremendous. We'll talk about that later, but what a great match. So much cooking up, and all those, I'd say about 99%, stirring it up, about 99% of my issues lately with AEW, if you have nitpicks, were resolved.
There's no issues.
No issue. Well, I thought it was fantastic. Everything was very well done. A lot of stories are taking place. I feel like they're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, there was not a dull moment of the night, and so much blend of different avenues that AEW is going. And we'll dive into where we're sitting leading into Grand Slam Australia in terms of Season 5 standings, because, you know, it might be since week 1 SPD's been at the top, but the top no longer. He's going down under. So let's dive into where we're sitting in Season 5 standings right now.
SPD has been dethroned.
For now.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the top of the mountain, dethroning the SPD is none other than Mr. Steven Chambers himself at 13 points. Woo!
Enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to last for long there, brother.
Yeah, that's what and you know what? It's still anybody's game. 10 points separate the leader of the pack from the last person in the pack, from the caboose.
Right.
The caboose, it's the cutest caboose on the roster, of course, FDD. But anything can happen. And, as we get closer to Revolution, we're going to be adding more to our roster. But we also have to be clear to let everybody know, as you know, Ricky Starks is now officially with NXT. So SBD has now had to replace, due to the full tilt Deb rule.
This is the full tilt Deb rule. Explain
Full
it
tilt
again.
Deb rule is if a wrestler goes to another company, you on your draft, you are allowed to replace them. So SBD has officially drafted
the most wanted man.
The most wanted man, Bandito.
So in theory, other rumors swirling around, if DMD were to sign with WWE or TNA or whomever, you would Crayfish would pick someone, or Wardlow and so forth. So in interest of the FCD rule, with I forget who it was. It was Andrade. I think Andrade she had on her team, and he showed up in WWE. So that one was expunged from her team, and she got to repick. So hopefully it gets me back on top. I don't know, Bandito, if he stays healthy. I mean, I think hopefully he's up for a good push coming soon, feuding with the Learning Tree, which we'll talk about. But man, as we say in this draft, it's like every point is a premium. And wow, it is it's a scratch and claw fight for every single week. And I just love the AEW is going overall. And so, yes, I'm always rooting for my team or whomever, but at the same time, I'm like, if my teammates don't win, I'm still happy because of the stories of somewhere they're going, what we've seen. But diving into last night's show, I mean, kicking things off with that awesome backstage stuff that we got, and man, what match do you want to kick off with talking? Because I know you're fired up from the show.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a ton that we could talk about. I thought that it was tremendous. Let's just start off with the greatest wrestler alive. Max Caster Open Challenge. Now, what's interesting about this?
Don't you worry, that's patented.
It's patented, but it's interesting that Max Caster, he's definitely going full stooge, but they're using this as a vehicle to kind of drive other stories. Max gets out there all cocky, gets his ass kicked, and then they move on. So I think this is a good way to introduce. I don't think this has legs, but this will be good for the next couple weeks where Max Caster gets. He gets a couple more challengers. I do think eventually, though, we need Anthony Bowens. We need to blow off that feud. You can keep having Max Caster as this heel character. And I mean, at this point, he's kind of leaning into his stooge persona, but definitely he's definitely providing the comic relief. I mean, hiding in the crowd behind a sign, that I think that was brilliant. And I think as far as stooges go, he's giving Brandon Cutler a run for his money.
I mean, honestly, you mentioned the keyword crowd, and for him to just start the show after a huge pyro and everything we saw, the crowd played a huge role. Great I feel crowd. Like they're so energetic and lively as of late, the crowds at AEW shows. So props to everyone who's been going to shows as of late, because you're really taking the controls of the direction of some of the wrestlers, aka Ricochet and now Caster. Because Caster's been getting, boos, but nothing like last night. Last night he was getting some lethal boos. Yeah. And I know obviously he's saying things that are not crowd friendly. So for him to get those lethal boos was fantastic. And just on the other side of the coin, Hangman is getting the babyface cheers. Yeah. And he's been a tweener, and people forget, he burned Swerve's house down. He did all this crazy stuff. He's technically not a babyface in terms of the violence that he is, but he's getting back one over. And after we're done talking about this, I wanted to transition to MJF Hangman, and then we can talk MJF Dustin match. But the fact, like, this was a perfect pairing, and the stoogeness of claiming you're the best wrestler and getting beat every single time so far within like under 2 minutes is just kind of like, it is comical. And I wonder what the end game of this is. Like, is he just going to be the jobber, which I think he's much better than that. Maybe he'll have some kind of turning point and redemption, but I'm happy to see Hangman starting to get a lot of cheers because I mean, a top Hangman, either way, man, he does so good both ways. And I loved the interaction after or where backstage where it's like telling MJF, move along. The MJF Hangman feud that's brewing, that's there already, got escalated so much last night. I loved it so much. I talk about lightning in a bottle in such a short amount of time. MJF and Hangman brought it down. That was one of the most exciting moments of the night, in a night filled with awesome stuff. When that backstage promo when they cross paths and going back and forth, I think it elevated MJF too. I think this is going to be a prime example, Hangman and MJF, an iron sharpens iron moment, because I think both guys are obviously former champs, but they need a great dance partner, and those two are going to have awesome battles. Mike in-ring stuff, and watching MJF in the ring versus Dustin, it's like you're reminded, like, as much as we hate his guts as being a scumbag, he's got a lot of talent in the ring. Yeah. And he's got a lot of in his arsenal. He's very smooth. He's perfect pace setter in the ring. But before we dive into this match, and we know MJF was your top performer, what did you think of the MJF saga with Hangman?
Oh, I love it. First, essentially, MJF wrestled 2 matches back to back. I mean, he essentially had, because he put on a banger with Dustin, and we'll talk about that. But MJF, I think this was one of those moments where what they had planned with Jeff Jarrett and MJF, I think they pivoted in the right way. And they kind of
that's a whole other story.
And Dustin, of course, he became kind of that linchpin. I do have a kind of a mild hot take about Dustin we can get to in a second, but I'm loving the way that this feud with MJ. You got 2 homegrown legends battling it out. MJF is essentially the modern day Ric Flair. Hanger is essentially the modern. You would almost argue the modern day Stone Cold. I mean, not quite the same, but like they're AEW's originals, and they're really, this feud is, and there's history here. If you go back to day one, even pre-Dynamite. They were the number 1 contenders. They in the battle, they had the battle royal. They also had for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, they were the last 2. Of course, MJF won that one, but it's one of those things where this is a classic feud in the works here. I'm all here for it. But to talk about the match itself, I felt like that. There's the kayfabe story of MJF is such a scumbag and has no respect for all the legends. And then there's the shoot where I think backstage, and he'll never admit it, but just like he loves just like what he called our show, where what he thinks of our show, I also think that that's kind of the same compliment. I think he's kind of working with legends, and Dustin Rhodes is so underappreciated. I know he's not everybody's favorite wrestler. He's definitely not my wife's favorite wrestler at all. But to me, I think he's underappreciated for not who he is, but and the wisdom he has, but what he does for AEW right now. He is that go-to, hey, we need somebody, we need this, and he goes in and kills it. That promo he did, he could take a last-minute booking and turn it into and make you hyped enough that this is going to be an epic match. I think
every single time.
He was definitely showing his age. I mean, shoot, he's older than me, and he's in the ring doing this stuff. But it was I think this was a rub for MJF. It was in a way Dustin kind of acknowledging that MJF was in the future. We had that great Gold Dust, Yambag Jones spot, if you will, which was fantastic. Yeah. But this was a great way. And of course, MJF is going to get nothing but heat beating up these legends. But that, again, was just leading to what inevitably would be the Hanger versus MJF. Oh, no, not the dip and dodge. Just incredible fight. I thought this was very compelling. And this actually surprised me. But MJF was my top performer simply because he wrestled twice and he's playing such a necessary role in everything that he was involved in last night.
Every wrestler needs a yin to their yang when you're building a feud. And honestly, like after last night's show, the MJF, I know we were getting little sprinkles and tastes and cross paths and we were getting a little hyped. This turned it up to the max volume. And I think this max MJF volume. Hangman has got main event quality feud written all over it. Unfortunately, whatever happened with the Jeff Jarrett stuff, like never really finalized. I picked him on my team. I thought he'd pick up a couple wins and do something. Like I really don't understand that. And that's a whole nother topic for another time. However, this feud is going to be so fun to watch. And I want it to slow burn. I want this to go on. I want this to be Hangman's next Swerve victim. I mean, it's gonna. I don't know if he'll ever top the Swerve stuff, but this is it's starting to feel that big.
To your point, we've seen what Swerve and Hangman can do together.
Sure.
Now we've taken those two, and now we've kind of pivoted them. Swerve is trying to get another one going with this time with Ricochet, and we got Hanger now doing his stuff with MJF. It's like they took one of the most epic feuds of 2024, and now they're focused. They're creating two feuds for 2025 out of that, and I think it's fantastic. Strap yourselves in. I don't think either of these feuds are going to end anytime soon.
We bring the boom. That's what we do. We bring the boom.
We bring the boom. Exactly.
I mean, that was a great way to say it. Like you have the top notch feud, and now you're spreading the wings. It's almost like we did it, so now let's start uplifting others and try to spread it. And then maybe from then on, Ricochet starts another feud, and it's like a trickle down effect within like the locker room. And I think that's just fantastic stuff. Now let's go to the women's division. So women's division was heavily featured last night, and we've spoken very highly of Penelope Ford and her ring general-esque and her consistent, just really being able to dominate a match and lead a match. And I thought the pairing of this was really great. I thought this was a very well wrestled match between Stat and Ford. Yeah. And I'm just waiting. I just want Ford to get some wins. I want her to get some W's. Like, I still don't think her stock is diminished taking all these recent losses because, as smart wrestling fans are just fans of working, that we can appreciate and see the effort she's going in. And they're not squashes or anything like that, which is good. But I think Penelope Ford has a great presentation. I think she's been, every match that she's fought in as of late has really been a well-paced fought and delivered match. And Statlander, same thing. It's like, I like the promos that they had ahead of this and the way it was. And so I know Penelope Ford's kind of sticking her nose in a lot of different areas right now. And do you see a faction forming? What do you see with this? Like, I could totally see her being the leader of some kind of heel faction. I don't know what hopefully there's something cooking backstage.
Well, it's interesting because, if we can double up, we can talk about Megan Bain's Dynamite singles debut against our girl Maya World, Mission Pro alumni, by the way. It was kind of a squash, but Penelope Ford is both times where Megan Bain has come out and beat up Penelope Ford's former opponent. Penelope was involved. So are we going to see Penelope Ford and Megan Bain? Is Penelope going to kind of be Megan's henchman? Because Megan's kind of being booked as this unstoppable force. So I did think for a while that maybe Penelope was going to join with the Vendetta crew with Deonna Purrazzo and Valkyrie, but now it does look like she's going to at least be somewhat involved with Megan Bain. I I love the way they're booking Megan Bain. I think they're doing very well. I hope they don't go Jade Cargill with her. I think she needs to have legit matches, not squashes all the time. And I think the next feud should be her and Statlander, because Statlander, a couple things. One, Statlander is such an incredible force to be reckoned with. She's such an incredible worker. I'm not going to say she's the Kenny Omega of the women's division, but everybody she wrestles has a good match with her. Mercedes, She made Mercedes Moné look very, very good. And I think shook a lot of rust off of her in both of those matches. And Penelope obviously can't do the things she used to do. I think she did have some back surgeries or something, but their match was fantastic. But if you're going to make Statlander look like a cruiserweight, you are a huge Amazon warrior goddess, and I think that's definitely the megasis Megan Bain. I'm here for it. I think this needs to be the big feud: Statlander versus Megan Bain. I like Brent's idea. Stat and Thunder versus Penelope and Megan Bain. That would be an incredible tag team match. I think
I could see it leading up to the ultimate payoff of Bain versus Stat, Haas versus Haas. I could see that tag match being incorporated, just kind of leading into it. But I agree with the whole Jade thing. Like, you don't want it. For what it was worth, last night's match wasn't a true squash. I felt like I expected a squash. However, it lasted longer than I expected. And so there was some toying with it and a little bit of back and forth, but then finally lights out. So I do like Bain. I was nervous when she debuted of like, what's going to happen next? And then now we've seen her over the last couple of weeks on and off. So it's good. You want her to be featured. That's one of my pet peeves of any debut and then kind of going off to the wayside for a couple of weeks. Yeah. It's like you need to keep the momentum going for weeks and weeks and weeks every single week. So I'm liking it where this is going.
Absolutely. I agree 1,000%. And I think they're doing Megan Bain correct. We can only speak to what we see on TV. We don't have the inside information most of the time. But I'm not sure what happened with Camille. I thought Camille would have been a great kind of warrior, kind of woman, maybe babyface, but that whole thing with Mercedes, I don't know what happened there. But Megan Bain is another big, powerful woman, and I think this is a great addition. She's going to enhance the entire roster. She's put them on notice, and she could eventually be somebody that, depending on what happens in Brisbane, could be a contender down the line for either a timeless or glamorous champion.
Speaking of Brisbane, 2 matches with Harley Cameron getting her match against the CEO and Tony getting her rematch against Mariah. Now, after Harley's promo, I was like, I could really see AEW pulling the trigger on this. Now, I know Harley has had maybe 1 or 2 wins at most. However, it could be the upset of the century for her to feel the wrath down in Australia. So as much as I love what's going on, like, I feel like they have, as we know, they have a huge star in Harley Cameron right now. I can't remember someone rising this fast in AEW than her, and it's been so fun to watch. Such a multi-talented person, and every time she's on TV, it's like must-see TV. Yeah. Now I could totally see them pulling the trigger. Selfishly, would love to see that and just the pop that they would get. However, like, if they did a double belt turn for the homegrown talent in the women's division, that would be a pretty epic thing to do down under. Now, looking at this, like both matches, do you see any title match or titles changing hands down under for the women's division?
See, that's the thing, is it's like, I think you're right. If one title changes hands, that means the other one's not. Yeah, but I do think at least
never say never.
I think at least one title will change hands. And up until last night, I agree. I felt like this was a good buildup, but Harley Cameron, she's going to get a good try there, hun, and lose the belt. But they did a great job making me, fooling me here now, because I I would rather Harley win than Tony Storm beat Mariah May at this point. And I love Tony Storm. The stuff that Tony Storm has been doing. In fact, that Tony Storm, let's the stuff that she's been doing, this whole, I was acting, the thing on Collision where she swapped places with the jobber, with Shay Carmichael to suddenly show up. Luther has returned. It's all this great stuff going on there. But then Harley drops this incredible rap with her puppet, and it was so epic. And then she pauses it and has this very serious promo. I want Harley to win. I want this to happen. But I think, unfortunately, I think Mercedes going to probably keep her belt. But I do think it's going to be timeless. We're going to have a timeless champion yet again.
Speaking of what Steven said here, I think you could flip the script on this. So smart booking would be essentially, obviously you want to give the people what they want, hometown stuff. Yeah. So unfortunately, if Harley doesn't win, Mercedes will get just lethal heat. And I think naturally you'll create a star in Harley from her hometown with that match. Not that she doesn't need any more support behind her because she's been getting a ton. However, if she loses this match, there's so much fan support going to be, and you'll hear the crowd, and will transition well at home here and wanting to cheer for her, and then giving us the ultimate payoff. So essentially, if they both change hands, you might get things kind of dissolved in the wayside. So you want to have one humongous payoff, such as Tony getting it. If this is the main event, I think the title is changing hands for sure. Yeah.
I actually like Steven's idea because they did this with Paige at the first All In in London, where give it to Harley, then she could lose it at Revolution, or if it's too soon, what have you. But yeah, definitely this is going to be good. Yeah, and Harley's becoming another one of those. I'm putting her up there with Prince Nana and Riho. That if you mess with Harley Cameron, you're getting instant heat from me and from a lot of people.
But also, think about a booker. If you're going into your show at LA for a pay-per-view, your first pay-per-view in a couple months, you obviously want to use the Mercedes name as a title going into the show. So booking standpoint, looking at it that way, I would want Mercedes to be with all the titles and all cocky and promoting the show. If she doesn't have the TBS title, she's not going to be promoting it as much until Harley really becomes a main stage draw. Right.
You're right. And it is the TBS title, just like the TNT is the TNT title. So you do actually make a good point. There is a marketing aspect to it, which is interesting because the marketing for the AEW title is to keep it in a suitcase. But but yeah, I do think that's a smart move, and Mercedes does, she's beyond wrestling. She's an actress as well. Star Wars, all that. So having her with the TBS title is definitely something. And again, we love Harley. If Harley doesn't win the TBS title, then who would be a legit challenger at Revolution? And I think a mistake would be, unless they do some splaining, I don't think they should bring Camille back for anything like that. I mean, be interesting to see which way they go. Maybe Jamie Hayter. I mean, for crying out loud, it's time for a women's Continental Classic, and you don't have to call it Continental Classic, but have that style of a tournament
for sure
for the TBS, for number one contender for TBS, because then you could give Penelope Ford a couple wins, even if she doesn't win the tournament. You can make use of all this incredible roster. It's time. I think it's time, please, Tony Khan.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of titles and speaking of divisions that we have been very anxious to get really rocking and rolling, the trios division has recently kind of been rekindled, and we saw it a lot last night. First off, the title match, and then second, which we'll talk about after. But we've been seeing a lot of trios divisions matches as of late, kind of sprinkling some new teams in there and what's going to happen. I say it week in, week out, I still want Rated FTR to win the trios titles because I think they're the most worthy of it at the moment. This one I was honestly a 50-50 coin flip of, because they've been really pushing the United Empire, or excuse me, United Kingdom group as of late. And in typical fashion, they do that to try to uplift them and give them some momentum. This is, I believe, the 5th or 6th title defense of the Death Riders Trios run since August. So, and as we know, they most week in and week out, we see these guys, they're not even having the title belts around them. So that just like the world title, these trios have been held hostage for a lot of the last 6 months or so. And so to have these back in action and up for grabs, and then another team challenging for the trios titles is exciting. And I think given the landscape of things right now, the trios team of Cole, Riley, and Strong is working really great. Those guys obviously have a huge history together. And I'm not buying them as champs right now, personally. So I'm happy with the decision with the Death Riders, even if it was win by a low blow and a roll up. I think it was a well wrestled match on both sides. However, I don't know who. Actually, well, I guess I do. Who would be the next pick would be to dethrone them. But I'm glad with the title defense by the Death Riders and the division getting a little deeper. I mean, you got Daniel Garcia with 2.0 coming out. I don't think they're going to dethrone them. However, I'm not sure their direction with that, which I'm happy to see Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange back in action. But what do you think of this match? And are you happy with the result just like me?
Super happy with the result. I mean, it made sense. I miss the conglomeration Kyle O'Reilly because he got to show a lot more of his personality. But I don't know what this. I think this is their way of trying to help Adam Cole get a little bit more of a direction. I do thank you, Tony Khan, again for putting attention on the trios, because you're starting to see a big focus on the trios division now. And I wonder, something I've noticed about Tony Khan's booking style is if he gets an idea in his head, I think he's like a dog with a bone. He tries to make it happen no matter what. I think that was one of the things where he knew he wanted Statlander to dethrone Jade. He's one of those things where he was thinking about this, and I think he may have been holding off on what he wanted to do with the trios titles while they figured out what House of Black was going to do. And when they kind of got to a definitive moment with Malachi, and now we've got the Hounds of Hell doing their thing, I think now they're whatever's going on, whatever happened, they're now pulling the trigger and they're really creating these trios. And there's an environment, because again, you had the United Kingdom or Undisputed Kingdom, what have you. You've got the Daniel Garcia and the boys coming in as there. There's also another boys. I know you typed rated FTR. I think that's going to ultimately be the final boss for the Death Riders and possibly to dethrone them. But again, we're talking trios. There was another trio last night formed, a faction called the Ops. Are you down with OPS? Yeah, you know me.
Are you down with the OPS?
And I'm just waiting for that Samoa Joe Claudio face-off. Is just going to that back and forth between the two of them is just going to be incredible. I love this faction, this Ops faction, but yet another trio, and to see them I'd like to see them go through a few other trios and then face the Death Riders, and whether or not they're the ones to dethrone them or not, I think this is a great use of bringing Samoa Joe back. It's giving Hook direction. It's giving Shibata direction. And just the Samoa Joe is so much fun to watch, with his nope, his antics when was it Nick Wayne was chopping him and he was just acting like it was a mosquito hitting him or something. I mean, the stuff that he does is fantastic, and they're badasses, and they've been booked as such. But of course, they're going to be dealing with the patriarchy for a while. And that's going to be interesting to see how that develops. As far as the match itself, the title match, I am a little bit curious what happened to Taven and Bennett. I know Maria Kanellis is no longer with AEW, but Bennett is still in it, if you will. And I just wonder why they've been absent from this. Are they trying to recreate Undisputed Era from NXT? And I don't know, but I think the right decision, because the Death Riders have to be dominant. I just hope that we start seeing more trios matches booked going forward, and this isn't just a flash in the pan.
Yeah, 100%. It's been one of our wishes and gripes for 2025 to have the tag team titles and the trios titles reignited in AEW, since the world title has been MIA in a briefcase. So the ops, that photo, if you go back to that photo, it's like this is exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
Keep Hook and Shibata in the background and put the Joe, the big bad wolf, on the mic and just lead the charge. Like, yeah, change out that scarf for a towel if you got it.
Yeah, I don't have the white towel. I'm gonna get a white towel, but yeah.
Yeah, you need to change out that scarf for a towel because
Joe.
I love him leading the charge. And this is definitely, as I believe it was, whoever wins next week's match versus Patriarchy gets that trios title shot.
Oof.
Now, I texted you, I was like, well, what if Killswitch comes back for that trios match? Like, how sweet would that be? Like, that would be, recent picture, it looked like he looks pretty good.
Yep.
So if he came back for that match, and let's just say he didn't wrestle the match, but he came back and cost the Ops the win and reignited. And so that way buys the Ops a little bit more time for their title match versus the Death Riders, because I do feel like this team could be one of those that could dethrone the Death Riders for trios if Rated FTR is not going to be in that mix of that.
Yeah.
I would love to see eventually, Hobbs and Outrunners go for it. I don't think they would win the titles, but it would still be fun, that kind of pairing of that. But this seems like the most. There we go. There it is.
Joe.
Perfect. Get rid of that nasty ass scarf and get that white towel. So I do see this happening. So if they do beat the Patriarchy and then get the title shot at Revolution, I think it would be the time to cash in for that the victory.
Yeah. I the only thing I would do, I would 100% accept. I would actually have Killswitch cost the Patriarchy.
Oh, try to hit here on purpose.
And that'll set up the eventual Christian, because Christian has two pawns in front of him. He's got his sons. So
right.
Killswitch would have to go through Kip and Nick before he can get to Christian. By the way, Christian is such a great heel. How he sees his sons getting their ass beat and he runs away and hides and then goes in and goes, "Are you guys okay?"
I know, right?
Such a great heel.
Horrible.
Great stuff. But yeah, the Ops versus Patriarchy, and then I'd like to see Ops and Death Riders. And yeah, great stuff.
Now the Death Rider segment stuff all night long was all over the map. And I rewatched it a few times when Cope hit Moxley in the back with the chair and stole the briefcase. I'm really digging the Switchblade Cope stuff pairing.
Interesting.
And I think they're like, two kids in a candy store kind of teaming up. Hopefully it doesn't cause friction of like, oh wait, who's going to win the, who's going to go for the title or whatever. If it seems like Switchblade is kind of accepting that, but I love the whole saga that was really carried on throughout the episode. And finally we're getting the match at Revolution, the first and only match that has been announced, the main event, Cope versus Moxley. And, some people are kind of over analyzing what Moxley said, and some people are thinking that the belt's not in there, and maybe the Young Bucks have something to do with all this. And I'm curious. I'm very curious. That's one thing I do like about going down the rabbit hole a little bit on X is the conspiracy theories and the different theories of people over analyzing every promo and things and whatever. And a lot of times they are right, and some are just off the wall. So, do you think there's any hidden agenda going on with what we're seeing? I don't know how deep you went into hearing some of the theories online.
I don't even need to go online. My own rabbit hole. I go down my own hole.
Yeah.
Wait, that didn't sound right. Forget that. But no, I completely I think there's so many ways they can go with this. Obviously they're setting up something with Willow and Marina Shafir, but I think there's room for a Beth Phoenix or Beth Copeland to show up,
Yeah.
and possibly do something. I think it's compelling that maybe there's nothing in the briefcase. That there's going to be that's going to be a surprise. And Steven beat me to the punch. Switchblade is Switchblade.
Yeah.
And he's going along with Cope way too easy. I
He's a
have
baby
a
face.
feeling
He's got it.
I have a feeling old Kiwi is going to stab Cope in the back here, and I think that's what's fixing to happen. But he's going along very easy. My only concern is are the guns still with him? Are we going to end up seeing like rated FTR versus Gun Club versus the Bang Bang Gang? I mean, if so, I'd love to see that, but it's going to be very interesting to see. But there's so many rabbit holes. I think we can safely say that Shane McMahon is not going to be involved in this.
A few weeks of expecting all that.
But it's gotten a lot better. I think there was a period a few weeks ago where we weren't sure what was going on, but it feels like over the last couple, I'd say the last 4 televised shows, particularly this last Dynamite and the last 2 collisions, AEW's really kind of hit the pavement. They're hitting clean pavement. They're not hitting the potholes anymore. And I think part of that, we can touch on it just for a second. Ricky Stark showing up at NXT, Miro and Malachi are now off the roster page. It does seem like they're kind of cleaning house a little bit. I mean, they're kind of organizing their closet, but I think that they're getting their house in order so that they can move forward. And I feel like for the first time in a long time, AEW is actually moving forward in a direction that feels like I'm getting that feeling back again.
Yeah, no, you said it well. I'll echo that, and I completely agree. It feels very. The momentum is definitely on their side in a big, big way, and you gain a lot of times too. It's like you gain so much by the process of elimination. It's like now you don't have the distractions of whatever the stuff's going on with those 3 wrestlers that have left, or you no longer, contracts expire and things, all that. So I'm glad you could just move on and be done. Don't have not this like annoying clickbait stuff of like, oh, they're there, whatever. So I feel like it's strong, and it's just going to continue a huge wave in 2025. But speaking of waves, Jericho just came off his cruise, the Jericho cruise, and he's still making waves with a lot of enemies. The learning tree has got some big bad enemies, and we saw it last night. And I feel like in typical Jericho fashion, which is no fault to him, he loves uplifting young stars, aka Bandito. I feel like he heard the crowd and he felt that moment between the bounty hunter Brian Keith and Bandito with the draw out there in the ring, and then kind of elevated it more with the spotlight and all that. He's like, oh, I want to be a part of that. I feel like when big things happen, he's almost like, I want to jump in and do something like that as well. And so, which is fine, because I feel like it's, maybe that was pre-planned. Maybe it was like just between those guys and they did it and the crowd reacted so good and he wanted to be a part of it. But I love like that, the way they were doing that, and the crowd was counting. So maybe that's going to start a new thing with Bandito matches, where he's like, they go to battle and then they go back to back and then they start to do
I love that shit.
The 5 paces. I really would love that if the crowd gets behind that. But man, the mix of wrestlers, the mix of battles, I mean, Bandito, Jericho, the Outrunners are thrown in there. And obviously the Meat Mayhem with Big Bill and Powerhouse Hobbs is quickly becoming one of the more exciting feuds that we're on our edge of our seat waiting for it to ultimately culminate and pay off in the ring. But this whole segment was way better than it should have been, in my opinion. And it turned out great and got us a lot of fun stuff to look forward to.
Absolutely. The meat match is good. I'm super excited for. If those of you that caught our Collision Control Center, SBD had a nice update, and we talked about my pick for the Collision All-Star was actually Brian Keith. It could have gone Bandito or Brian Keith, but I went with Brian Keith because that match they had on Collision was tremendous, because they were doing a lot of Western gunslinger callbacks, not just the back-to-back thing. But also there was one where Brian Keith got hit and he dropped like a classic Western being shot, where he drops to his knees and goes, ugh, and then falls. I mean, that was a classic nod to the Westerns of old. And of course, Jericho just hamming it up. I understand why some people, like, Jericho is not everybody's cup of tea. Yeah. I hope this guy is wrestling till he's 90. You know, I think I enjoy Jericho always reinvents himself. Right when he's starting to feel stale, he reinvents himself. And this is doing as much for Jericho as it is for Bandito. I'm so glad Bandito, I'm so glad he doesn't have a concussion. You know, I just hope he doesn't do that again. But there's so much going on for this. I thought it was great. I thought, and like Steven talking about Renee smirking, how Brian Keith is like, don't disrespect Chris Jericho. It's all been fantastic. I'm here for it. But Large William versus Powerhouse is what I'm looking forward to the most out of all this.
Yeah, and I mean, in the chat, I was posting, I was like, I feel like Revolution could be Mercedes. Real quick, you know, this is just fantasy off the cuff. Like, some of the matches there, and I added, obviously, Hobbs versus Bill, like, certain ones, like, I don't know who Garcia really would face against at the moment, but...
You know, I think Garcia, to Steven's point, Garcia and Cole.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they get crossed up and, like, you know, there'll be two baby faces going at it. Let's talk main event, then we'll get into D3, and then we're coming to near the end of our episode so far. But I loved the main event. We hurt people, guns up. We hurt people, guns up.
Such a 50-50. Can we talk again? We talked about it earlier, but I wanted to readdress how awesome this crowd was. And I do think we are seeing smaller arenas, a focus on getting slightly smaller arenas, but they're packed. You know, where instead of having that whole, you know, these giant arenas where there's less acoustics, the acoustics, you get a much better sound representation. I think it's fantastic. This crowd was super hot. I love that there was such a 50-50 cheer for this. You know, I wasn't going into it. I was a little bit sad because I'm like, I don't think the Hurt Syndicate's going to lose. And I want the Guns to get their belts back. So I was kind of perplexed, and I'd like, you know, and this is the second time it's like you bring somebody in and you bring a new tag team together and then they lose to the Hurt Syndicate. I mean, the same thing with, you had Brody King and Buddy Matthews and then they lose their first tag team together. It's just kind of, but whatever's going to elevate the tag team division and move it forward, I think it's fine. I mean, you can just have these guys, you know, continue to hurt people. And I do hope that the Guns, they explain something about why they're not with Jay White. Maybe they're going to help him turn on Cope. I don't know what's going to happen. The match was fantastic. It was great to see the Guns in action. They're doing such a great job with the presentation of Hurt Syndicate. Hurt Syndicate's getting to do what they weren't able to do in WWE as the Hurt Business. And it's so smart. You MVP has the microphone, and Shelton and Bobby, they hurt the people. And I think it's fantastic. People. Their presentation's been fantastic. They are the team to beat. I'm enjoying this so much. And then we had the ending, which just, I squealed like a little girl. And I want this for Revolution.
Oh gosh, give it to us ASAP. And two guys that can go battle back and forth, both in the ring and on the mic with Cage and Archer. I'm pumped for it. But to the match first, like it's so great having the Guns back in the tag team division, because that instantly elevates the tag team division to must-see TV. Yeah. And I was a little nervous of them going when they first showed up last week. I was like, this is a tough spot because Hurt Syndicate is so over right now. The crowd is so behind them. You almost could, like, no one that you book against them could essentially get over. But thankfully, the crowd was smart and split. For a while, they were not on the Gun side, but it was able to win them over with some great crowd participation. So I was happy with this. And, you know, the Guns in the ring, man, it just showed how much we did miss them, and
Yep.
the tag team division needs them so much. And I'm
You know what you didn't
excited
hear?
that they're back.
You know what you didn't hear? You didn't hear Ass Boy chants. Even
That's
though
right.
they tried to say it last time. No Ass Boy chants. I love it. They have moved on from the Ass Boys.
They have moved on from the Ass Boys, and it's all guns up. And I loved the crowd reaction, the crowd participation, and they showed up in the ring against a Goliath members of the Hurt Syndicate. They were holding their own for a while, but it just proves to all of us and whoever's in the tag division that you're on notice. And the Hurt Syndicate, it was hard for me to pick one last night, but I picked the Hurt Syndicate because they had their best title defense. I know it's been early, but their best title defense so far has been tested. Hasn't been any squash. It's been former champs, so they're booking them with high quality talent. And then for them to go against Cage and Archer will be definitely a huge match, a meat-filled match. And I was definitely popping just like you when they came out to the ring there. So I am very curious where the Guns go from here. I love the Bang Bang Gang. I love that. So maybe after that tag match, the Brisbane Brawl, like, I don't know if Jay White's still going to have his eyes focused on the title, or maybe he's like, Cope, go get him. I want to be your challenger once you win the belt. And then if Cope does win, then he does face Jay White. And then they kind of shift gears back to the Bang Bang Gang, the Collision Cowboys. And so we're all happy with baby faces because we want to keep them all together. We don't want to see the Bang Bang Gang break up, because in a landscape of AEW that has not many babyface factions, you think about it, like, who is the biggest babyface faction other than United Kingdom?
OPP now.
Yeah, the Ops, but like
maybe.
A faction, okay, more than a trios. So like the conglomeration's gone. So if you had that stable of the Bang Bang Gang, if Juice gets back healthy, like, it'd be very important for the landscape of AEW to have that team together as baby faces, because the Guns are clearly getting over. And
shoot, I forgot we were talking trios, LFI.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Just thought of it.
Lots of good trios coming. Lots of good trios in the landscape of it. But yeah, Hounds of Hell would be great. Like, tag division, I feel like still is getting some work, but this is like, once you have Guns, Meat Brothers, and then the Hounds of Hell, and then I'm trying to think what other ones that would really be worthy of going. I mean, you could throw the Outrunners in there, but just as like, I don't say jobbers, but it'd be fun to really, if you're going to push the Hurt Syndicate as heels, you need to have some over baby faces.
Yeah, and the
such
Outrunners,
as the Guns, such as the Outrunners, such as whomever, anyone else.
But here's the thing about the Hurt Syndicate: are they heels?
I mean,
they're being billed as heels,
like
but they're being
But I don't think they are. I mean, for a while, I don't think they have been, because the crowd chants while they come out to the ring. They chant it during the match. Like, I mean, they're trying to present themselves as heel, but they're naturally staying a babyface.
Yeah. So
great show last night.
The Righteous. There's another trio they just brought in. Walk with Elijah. I guess since it can't be WWE, it can't be Walk with Elijah. It's got to be Always Walk with Elijah.
Always eat Wheaties.
Always Elijah walking. But yeah, the Righteous is such an underrated team and trio. I feel, now they're killing it in Ring of Honor, but that's another group that I think would be so compelling to be in the mix. And he's supposed to be recovered from his injury soon. Are we going to have the Outrunners and boys?
Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, bring Dalton Castle back into the mix. There's so much that we could do with that. Tremendous. Yes. Great stuff. Such a great Dynamite. Like I said, it felt like a go home show. It felt like a go home show. I was saying, I was sitting there trying to think about how, like, my picks for the bingo card, and then I realized Oh, there isn't a bingo card. Maybe we should put one out just for giggles, no points. But I don't know. I'm excited. We are going to have a collision control center, SPD. Should we tag team this one because it's such a big event?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll talk off air and we'll do definitely collision control center, which will be live on Sunday, or excuse me, posted on Sunday. But it's such a monumental show. First show in Australia, a lot of Australian-born folks, and I like that. For those locally there, they're going to get a lot of wrestling. Like there's been a lot of advertised matches that aren't televised, but maybe we'll get it to be like a YouTube special. So the only matches that count for our points card are ones on TV. So if they're on, let's say YouTube or something, do we want to count them or what?
No, they got to be televised.
The Revolution's got to be televised.
The Revolution has got to be televised. The draft has got to be televised.
All right.
Exactly. But, I guess that's all we have to do for the show tonight. That's all we have going on.
D3.
Except it's time for the D3 or 3. I don't know.
3.
All right. It is my turn to hit you at SPD with the SPD 3.
SPD 3.
SPD 3. All right. My first question. This is let's with AEW. If you could swap out, this is going to be, you're going to kill one title and then introduce a different title, what would it be and why?
Kill a title and add a title?
Yeah, or take a title and rename it. Either way.
I would kill the TBS Women's Championship and add a Intercontinental type of belt for the Women's Championship. Women.
Interesting. Okay.
I never liked the TBS, even though the TNT is equally caliber. It just feels different to me. But I would do. That's what I would take away is the Women's CBS and add like an international women's title. So you have international men's, international women's. That way, that's the way I would do it.
Got it. Because if you're gonna have the women's main title parallel the men's title, makes sense. Makes sense. All right, second question. WWE is continuing to try to bring in celebrities. AEW as well, because they're made sure that
we bring the boom. That's what we do. We bring the boom.
They're bringing the boom. But let me ask you, as far as maybe not necessarily A-list, but it could be any major celebrity. If you could recruit any major celebrity with enough training under QT Marshall or whoever, what celebrity would you bring into AEW for not just a one-off, but like a Logan Paul run or a Brown Bunny or some of these that have been in WWE for more than one match? Is there what celebrity do you think has what would be compelling, could do it, and would be able to perform well in the ring? Who would be a celebrity that you think could really fit well for it, like a 6-month run in AEW?
The first one who came to mind before you explained more details was like Mark Wahlberg. But you didn't say have a 6-month run. Now, when you were saying like 6-month run and stuff like that, I think his name's Alan something. He plays Reacher.
And forget he needs to be Reacher.
Right. I would love to have the actor who plays Reacher in AEW and do some wrestling, because I love that show, and the next season is coming out. And for him to have a crossover in AEW and do some wrestling and some ass whooping in the ring would be a lot of fun, because the guy's a beast as it is. And so I would love that. That's the one that came to mind. Or John, I forget his last name, who plays the Punisher would be really cool too. Berthal, or forget what is this?
Yeah, John Berthnell. Yeah.
Yeah, like the guy who plays the Punisher. So those are the ones I'd pick. But first pick would be, his name's Alan Richardson or Richardson or something. I follow him on Instagram. That would be for a wrestler.
If you ever watched the live action Teen Titans, he was in there for a while. They killed him off. Spoiler alert. But he was really good in that. But when they cast him as Reacher, and from what I've never read the books, but the fans were saying that he's a lot closer. That Reacher character is so much better than, of course, Tom Cruise, who's like a dwarf. You know, this guy was fantastic. He would be incredible. I think he could do a good 6 months. But now I also want Marky Mark to come in. He's got to come out to the Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch music.
And yeah, good. I'm glad. Yeah. That's
Final question. Take one current roster AEW wrestler as they are right now.
Okay.
Versus any wrestler when they were in their prime. They step through a time machine in their prime, and they have a one-off match at Double or Nothing. What would you book? And that's any current AEW wrestler, could be Moxley, Kenny, could be anybody, versus a step through a time, could be 80s, Attitude Era, PG Era, Ruthless Aggression. It could be any era. Bruno Sammartino, could be anybody.
So I would do, given like if we were able to get a feud and lead up with promos.
Yes, everything build up. Yep.
MJF versus The Rock. So I could see MJF get his ass beat by The Rock, and The Rock just talks so much smack and just layeth the smack down on him, because like the promo battles would be pretty epic. And MJF would try his so best to undercut The Rock. And Rock is so witty and so quick. He would have so many comebacks and insults, and it would just love to see MJF tuck his tail between his legs and get his ass whooped, lay it to SmackDown on Know Your Rule Boulevard and SmackDown Drive, and it would be such a fun one. Or obviously MJF and like Stone Cold, same thing. Rinser, you know what I said. Scoot says Darby Allin versus Cactus Jack. That would be pretty insane. You know, I don't want to. I wouldn't have. I don't know if I'd have the stomach for that. Really.
Who dies first? Like a death. That would be a true death match.
But there's so many different like layers of that. Like I'm trying to think who would compare. You know, who would you want to book Undertaker against in AEW? You know, like Brody King, like all that.
Oh, Brody King versus Taker would be tremendous.
Right.
Yes. Good.
So. You know, Darby versus Bray Wyatt would be pretty sweet, in my opinion, too. So, like, that's a good question a lot. But the first one that came to mind would be that, because in just terms of build of a match and promo battles, you know, in-ring work, you know, it's not going to be like, you know, Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega, you know, because I don't know. That's just different styles of wrestling. You know, I love Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega style right now. And so I just don't know if there's anyone in the years past of the prime where I love WWE where that could match that style that I would like, because it's totally different. Like the Stone Cold, The Rock era is different. And I think that would be more on pace to what MJF style is. So that's what I would pick.
I like these suggestions.
Good ones in the chat. Great ones in the chat.
Kenny Omega, Kurt Angle, Thunder Rosa, AJ Lee, good stuff. I actually was thinking, that a great matchup would be Kenny Omega versus Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig. Would be tremendous. To me, Mr. Perfect's one of my favorite all-time wrestlers because he could take anything. I remember distinctly one time when Andre the Giant was near immobility. Andre did this like little swing at him. And Mr. Perfect made it look, I mean, he almost sold it like Shawn Michaels was selling to Hulk Hogan that one time, where he almost went flying across the thing. But yeah, Terry Funk and Mox, Ospreay, Great Muta. I was thinking Ospreay, Great Muta, Ospreay versus Jushin Thunder Liger would have been great too. Or Rey Mysterio in his prime, when WCW Rey Mysterio before he lost his mask. Yeah, would have been interesting too. Great. Sounds like the perfect match. I agree. And I would have also liked to have seen Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay versus Ravishing Rick Rude.
Oh,
Would have been a compelling match with Bobby Heenan in the corner. Awesome stuff.
shoot, man. Well, great show. Hey, everyone, thanks for tuning in once again. Love having you all in the chat. We'll throw up the rankings one more time as we set off into the sunset leading up to Grand Slam. Stay tuned for our Collision Control Center coming up this weekend. It's a new thing we're doing. We're on episode 3, so we talk a little bit about Collision, but this is Grand Slam Collision, so a lot going on. We can't wait to, Steven's sitting at the top. Not for long, buddy. I'm coming for you. Hopefully my guy Cope and Timeless Tony gets victories down under and can bring me back up there, and then we'll see what happens on Dynamite because they've only announced the trios match and with the Ops versus Cherokee in a face-to-face with MJF and Hangman. I think that was it, which is good. I don't want them to announce anything else because I want them to focus on Grand Slam. Like that's all I need to focus on for now. But you guys, thanks for tuning in. Love having you chat, and we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon. And with that, let me press the exit button.
We bring the boom. That's what we do. We bring the boom. We bring the boom to you. We bring the boom. We bring the boom to everyone. We bring the boom. Your favorite father and son.
Every afternoon on your FYP.
We'll be bringing the boom around 3:15.
We bring the boom so loud the whole earth shakes.
With double chunk chocolate cookies.
And chicken bakes.
Man, is it